haters will say, it's a green screen, man.
Coming to you live from another undisclosed
Foreign location.
Yep, and you got birds flying and shit all over the place.
Kind of curious, how many zip codes have we podcasted in?
That's a great point.
Probably
I'd say like 5. Well, actually, we drove through some places.
So we were in, I think I counted 7 different cities that time. And they're small cities, though.
Still counts.
7 different zip codes, plus one more, plus this one.
We're not global, but we're
not yet.
We're mobile. Not global, but mobile.
We are a global company, though.
Yeah.
One of 2. 2 or 3?
3.
Is Ultra global?
If we want it to be, yeah. So yeah, it's global. So we got 3 global companies, doing our thing out here, man. I'm coming to you live on this fine, what's it?
Wednesday. Just podcasting in 96-degree weather in full jeans, by the way.
Yes. See, I gotta lift my fucking knee up that high. But yeah.
I don't know many people that will go outside in the heat, much less sit outside in the heat.
But if you can't stand the heat or take the heat, what you gotta do? You gotta get out the fucking kitchen, man. Or get out of Texas. Either or.
I was gonna say, if you can't handle the heat, then you're gonna take the beat. Because then you're gonna get beat. Because you can't take the heat. But that doesn't work out too well.
Yes. Physical abuse.
But anyways, back to the main topic. The topic of today's podcast is, this is an art, not a science.
So, do you want me to kick it off and explain a little bit? Huh?
Please, enlighten us.
All right. So we had this conversation briefly. I'm not going to discuss how long ago it was because that's not important. We had this conversation, and basically, we realized that, if you think everything is a science when it comes to business, there's going to be curveballs thrown your way that you're going to have to deal with. That formula that, that science backs may not have predicted that, No matter how smart you are, you probably can't predict a formula that's going to, predict everything, or make a formula that's going to predict everything that can happen to you, especially for a business. So saying that a business is more of a science, I feel like is misleading, because there's going to be a lot of things that, you're going to have to figure out on. We didn't account for the birds and the fucking, the mic's not picking up. But yeah, so you're going to have to account for those curveballs and things that don't happen, or that don't usually happen, that may happen to you, that somebody may not have gone through before. So you're going to have to adapt and figure it out. So it's more of an art. You're going to have to figure out what happens to you, and, how your business is going to handle that, and how you handle your work, and how that is going to translate into how you get through that problem. That problem may not originally have a formula to solve it, but, with seeing things as an art form as opposed to science, it allows you to kind of have more of a fluid-like method of handling things that come your way.
That was actually a pretty good summary.
Yeah,
I like it.
We do this
on the daily.
Yeah.
While we wait, while we wake, while we wait, while we're asleep, while we lift the weights, while we eat, while we shit, while we wipe our ass. Wipe your ass.
Wipe your ass, man. Come on now. Don't be nasty.
Nasty fucks.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of, so the thing about science is very rigid. You don't give up on an idea until it has been disproven. So in other words, once proven, it's essentially almost like a religion or a law, and you don't necessarily refute it unless you have undeniable evidence. But if you take that same mindset into business, you're going to be very rigid. And it's the same thing with life and reality. Like science and the scientific method have its place, absolutely. But sometimes it takes adaptability, which we talk about at lengths. It takes a leap of faith. It also takes a level of intuition. And those 3 components are very large because you have to be in tune with the moment, because what might have worked in a certain circumstance and situation may not work in that current point in time.
See, I had an idea of saying something, but it might be a little offensive, so I'm going to try to
No,
frame it in a nicer way.
say it all the way.
So let's think about it this way, right?
Look, say it was offensive, and then I said it, and then we'll be good.
Okay, gotcha. So we'll use some examples, right? Yeah, okay. So there might be certain things like, okay, if we look at a a Kim Kardashian business model, right?
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know, crazy, right? If you have a business model that is dedicated and centered around how Kim Kardashian does things, right? And we wanted to adopt that model and followed it to a T.
Job and everything, bro?
I want to ask you, viewers, do you think that Kim Kardashian business model will work for us the same as it worked for her?
To be honest, it won't hurt our feelings.
Yeah.
You gotta be pragmatic.
Yeah. I'm probably not as, as attractive as a Kim Kardashian. I don't know what you're into, but hey, I'm probably not.
Not as rambunctious.
Yeah, and I don't have, the gluteus maximus of a Kim Kardashian. I'm not saying that's how she operates or that's the only way that she does her business. However, I'm just saying that
that's a large proportion.
If you have a business that's dedicated towards, say, a product or clothing that accentuates the curves of a woman, right? And we try to adapt that business model.
And we're the models?
That's not going to work for us. So even if to a T she documented everything and how she did it, that doesn't mean that somebody else could just pick it up and do it and it's going to work the same way. They're probably not going to get to 9 figures or something, 10 figures, something like that,
7, 8.
Yeah. No, I think she's in the hundreds of millions. I don't know if she's
gotta be in the hundreds.
Yeah, I don't know if she's
don't think she's not a billionaire. If she is,
I don't
right
know,
below. Congratulations.
I'm sorry, Kim Kardashian, for minimizing what you've done. But all I'm saying is, for that example,
shout out to Kanye.
Just because, shout out, my dude. But just because something worked for somebody else doesn't mean it's going to work for you. We've seen plenty of people that, may have gotten successful online or whatnot, and then we know people that are like, hey, I'm going to do that same thing. I'm going to do the same thing they did and take the same course and blah, 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 blah.
Do the same thing and sell the same product, and I'm going to do it better.
Exactly. That's not the way shit works all the time. More often than not, probably not. Because that person did it a certain way, and it was the right time. They were in the right environment with the right people around them, with the right amount of money, and it was raining that day, and just a whole bunch of bullshit.
The humidity
factors.
was approximately 27.2%.
Exactly, a whole bunch of bullshit factors. Well, not necessarily bullshit, but a whole bunch of factors were in play for that to happen, for him to get to that level of success. And you may see some type of benefit from following everything he does to a T, but you're probably not, he or she does to a T, but you're probably not going to get to the same level as they are, unless you spice it up, you mix it up, you add your little flair and touch here and whatnot, and okay, this is the time to scale, or I should scale like this as opposed to this,
Or maybe there's something better now than there was in the past.
Right.
Like the example we could give you is in marketing. You can market in a newspaper. And there's still space for that, and there's still businesses that will do well with marketing in a newspaper. But if I sell Gymshark shorts and I market it in a newspaper, but instead I could also market it on Instagram, however I still opt for newspapers, that's called poor adaptability, my friend. That's called thinking it's a science.
That's called being behind the curve, man. You're behind the curve. You're doing things like it was fucking 2008. It's not 2008.
Newspaper advertising was like 1940, bro.
I mean, people were still doing it a little bit in 2008, but of course now is definitely is almost out of there, to be honest with you. But that just reminded me of what you were saying. It's also, think of it like cooking. Cooking is almost an art form in a sense, because there might be a recipe.
But cooking's very much a science.
It is a science, but here's the thing.
But you're right. There is an artistic edge to it.
Yes, and I feel like and this is why I say that there's an artistic part or big piece of it, because sure, you can follow a recipe the right way. However, you don't know, like, certain things that they have, like the air in the room that they have.
No, it's true. The humidity.
How that affects the bread or the yeast.
It's the same reason why there's only one place where Parmesan comes from, because of the bacteria and the grass.
So knowing all that stuff and incorporating it into your food, and then also knowing how it affects things, it gives you liberty to change it up and add a little something here and do a little something there. Because I feel like most recipes, great recipes of just great food creations in general, respond from trying something out. So you can follow something to a T and it'd be cookie cutter. However, you're probably not going to be able to push the boundaries or really make an outstanding product because you're following the cookie cutter thing of doing it. So with business or with cooking or whatever what you do, you're going to have to take some artistic liberties to try to take your company to the next step. You might fail. It might taste like shit. The food might taste like shit. Or you might find a new way of doing something and the food tastes better than the original recipe. So that's with business as well. You have to take those kind of steps that the previous person may not have taken. You take notes from them, apply that, but also expound on it to create a new, better product, long-lasting product. And I feel like that's why it's more of an art form than a science, because if it was a science, then you have to follow everything to the T, and then the answer should be the same every time.
Right.
And that's not the case when it comes to business. You can follow everything to the T and it not work.
And the business is living. Like Austin says, you can push one thing in and push one thing in, but it's not always going to respond the same because it's living. It's like a child. A kid, you're not always going to know how a kid's going to respond. Sometimes you're going to get some crazy emotions and some crazy responses that you could not predict, and there is no guideline, there is no rule book. You got to adapt.
And we got a podcast coming up on that too, by the way. Hey, check
episode 17.
Check that one out. That's going to be life changing, man.
Childhood trauma, baby.
Yeah.
Childhood trauma.
Yeah.
But
see, we're thinking right here, man. We're here. Go ahead.
I'm gonna allude to something that my brother Adam said. You met Adam, right?
Which
Friday?
Yes.
So shout out to my brother Adam. We'll link his Instagram down below.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome power lifter. Even better dude. Great personality. He is a trainer. Y'all hit him up for exclusive trainer deals and promotionals. This guy is goated 100%.
Great guy.
Well, one morning we had a discussion about powerlifting meets and how, if you don't know how a powerlifting meet is structured, I don't necessarily know 100%. But basically, for every single lift, you have 3 attempts, and you pick your weight for each attempt, but you can only move a certain amount of weight in between each attempt. To my knowledge, I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. I appreciate that. But the point is, we discussed how there's a balance between being rash and being bold. And I think that actually plays perfectly into this topic, because if you take something as a science, you'll have a tendency to be, it's rash, bold, or what's the third one? Because rash and bold are similar, except one is jumping the gun, but the latter is like being too conservative, too modest.
Okay.
So you can be either too modest or too conservative, which I would argue is going to happen if you're taking a very scientific approach to business.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not taking, this is where a scientific approach can help you though, because it can help pull back being rash. And if you don't know, being rash is essentially jumping the gun and making a decision ahead of time, or a decision without the proper information.
Right.
And the third one is being bold. And that's where I think you make the distinction between art and science. Because art is essentially making a statement or taking an action that others wouldn't take in an opportune moment.
Creative liberties.
Right. So the temperature is just right. So it's about time to make your ice cream. Versus, approximately the humidity is this. The temperature, normally we'll do it when it's a little lower. So we're not going to do it now. But you missed on the wave of customers that just happened to walk by and looking for ice cream because, school got out early. So it's kind of like a little bit of adaptability, a little bit of intuition, but also just flexibility and being bold and not rash.
Right.
So shout out to Adam for that analogy.
Yes, shout out to Adam.
Which I sort of botched, but it's okay. It was a long discussion a long time ago.
That's what we do here, man. We're thinking on the fly too. We're coming to you live, not scripted. It's not that, again, cookie cutter bullshit. We're giving you an artistic value, to how we do podcasts and doing a little different.
Well, and
more candid.
And this isn't just for y'all. A lot of it's for us too.
Yeah.
We're reasoning through topics and consolidating our understanding of the topic so that we can explain it better to others and so that we understand it better.
And also, that's why we come to give you like a little behind the curtains idea of things. We don't talk about things in depth before the podcast. We know the topic that we're going to discuss. We don't necessarily know how we're all going to tie it together at all until we're just on here talking. We have that, creative, artistic way of doing things. And again, it's the artistic way of doing it, because if we were doing it the scientific way, it would be do this way, do this at this time, do this at that, and then you have to wrap up and do this and blah, 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 blah.
Which isn't bad.
That's right. It's not bad.
Not bad.
Some of the, pioneers of podcasting might have done things that way. However,
Joe Rogan definitely doesn't do that.
Yeah, exactly. So you have people like Joe Rogan who throw a wrench into that whole methodology and say, hey, I'm going to do things my way. And people gravitate towards that. And that's how we're coming to you now. It's like, very, again, candid, off the top of the dome kind of way of doing things. And, that's our artistic way of bringing you some information that, we wish we could have known however long ago, or if you needed this, talk or conversation now, this is our way of giving it to you to where we feel like it's digestible for you and whatnot. So you got to be adaptable, but also got to take those artistic liberties to try to progress and go further and kind of separate yourself from the pack, But I guess that's a little bit of a tangent. But
however, don't think that this is our way of condoning being completely unorganized and unorthodox. This is us telling you to be bold in making your decisions, artistic in terms of trying to challenge what's known and what's understood because you believe that a certain thing can work a certain way. It doesn't mean to just say fuck all and do whatever the fuck you want and think that money's just going to come in and somehow you're going to retire your mom with no clear plan. Because if you fail to plan, you plan to what?
Fail.
There you go.
And to be honest, most things, anything, just look around, everything around you. If it followed necessarily the status quo of how things were probably done, it wouldn't be here probably. This iPhone that we're talking through right now, or this, or if you want to say, this $1 million camera that we're coming to you and giving you this 4K footage. But yeah, this iPhone that we're
4K 20p, baby. Yeah, you don't know about that, baby.
You don't know about that. But this camera that we're recording through right now, these mics and whatnot,
Or even, okay, so we have this we have this phone standing on a couple books right now. I could tell you, right? Traction by Wickman. And then even the 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene, those are works of art. Those are not works of science. Although there are scientific elements to them, where they came to be was in the artistic sense. Beautifully. And actually, the concept of today's podcast is from the book, Traction. So if you need help getting traction in your business, I highly recommend you buy yourself a copy of this book.
And to even get more kind of, what's the word?
Nitty gritty?
I wouldn't say nitty gritty, but
broad?
just, not broad, but like, kind of an analogy almost. We have these books, that we've gotten the information from to provide you with information for this podcast. So it's almost like we're using those books, this information, as the foundation to the foundation which this phone sits on, which we're producing this podcast on, to give you this information. So those books are the foundation of the artistic value and work that we're putting into this podcast to give to you today. And their artistic way of doing things and different ways of making a book and writing a book and different ideas and methodologies of how they feel like life or business should be ran were composed in that book, and we're giving that to you now through this phone. It's, again, is that the status quo? Is this a normal way of the scientific way of how we should do things? Maybe not, but we're taking an artistic way, just like the people before us, just like the people that we're building off of have taken that artistic way of giving you this information. and we're producing and giving it to you right now. So it's all intertwined. And when you take things and you take it as an art, those are the true pioneers of everything in every industry, really, whether it be fashion. Virgil Abloh, rest in peace. Off-White, pioneer, artistic, you know. Robert Greene, a pioneer in his field, and the way that he thinks and the way that he formulates what he's saying and puts it into a book to where you can understand it. That's an artist right there, an artistic man that produced great information. You know, Steve Jobs and Tim Cook, you know, not only great, you know,
visionary.
Not, I guess they were kind of businessmen and scientists, I guess. Tim Cook was, I wouldn't say scientist, but engineers.
Tim Cook was the integrator and Steve Jobs was the visionary.
Right. And they had an artistic way of doing things that created the iPhone. Like, the ones who think more artistically are the ones who innovate and lead the whole society and mankind forward.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, definitely.
When you think of things like that, you have to realize that, you know, come to things with a more artistic, you know, mindset, more painter mindset, as opposed to just ones and twos and zeros and ones and just Boolean methodology, true or false and stuff. You gotta think of it outside of the box and be an artist, you know. Those are the ones who truly lead society and mankind places.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. You said, I wasn't thinking about art as an actual art. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about the artistic approach, not like the literal art piece.
Mm-hmm.
But in Jordan Peterson's book, his third book.
Shout out
Jordan B. Peterson. The 12 More Rules to Life. It's the black cover, not the white cover. So it's the second of the 12 books for life, but it's not his second book. It's his third book. His first book is Maps to Meaning, just in case you didn't know. And basically, he talks about how one of the things that you should do is go and look at art.
Mm.
And you should purchase expensive art and have art in your house.
Mm.
And the reason he says that is because there are so many interpretations to a simple thing, to life, to what you see before your eyes, to the people that you interact with, to the things that you do on a day-to-day basis. And looking at art causes you and forces you to think in a sort of way that it's a questioning manner that's like, okay, why this though? Why was this tree painted in this way? Why did Churchill add the mouse to the painting? I don't know if you know that, but Churchill was a painter. And he took a very expensive piece of art and thought it would be better if he put a mouse on it. So it makes you think. It makes you really think. And that's when you're saying artistic versus scientific, it really makes you think, okay, I'm going to compete with the iPhone. And if you take a scientific approach, you're going to say, all right, I'm going to make it faster, I'm going to give it a longer battery life, and I'm going to make the camera better. Okay, but you forget how iPhone actually dominated the market, and that was basically running BlackBerry, flip phones, and every other kind of phone out of the market because it was a touchscreen. Mm-hmm. And not only that, it was a user-intuitive touchscreen device with a full-on gaming platform, which was awesome. If you grew up in the era where iPhones came out, you know what I'm talking about.
And they also branded it completely different than most as well. Like, I don't know if you all know this, but Apple has it to where, and I this might be just a myth, but I believe it to be true. They won't allow any person on a movie that is a villain to have an iPhone. If you look at every movie, every hero either probably had an iPhone or iPhone look-alike, and the villains didn't have an iPhone. And they do that.
Androids.
Yeah, they do that to project a message of, you know, the successful people or the good people have iPhones. So I need an iPhone because I want to be like them. Like, it's that way of doing things, like thinking outside the box. Most people wouldn't have even noticed that or thought to, hey, let's do that. This is the idea to where we're kind of making people want to get an iPhone because we're changing the way that people view it and think about it. So just that those ways that they thought outside of the box and chose to do things outside of the status quo is what set them apart, into where they basically cornered the market as far as they can do whatever they want and people are still going to get the new iPhone. If they had an iPhone, the iPhone from last year, they're still going to want the newest, latest iPhone. It's just like that. And you can say with certain Android phones, I'm not going to say names, but with certain Android phones, like Jose said, they made them, either faster, cameras better, battery life longer, and people still want iPhones more than they want those phones. Because it's not just the science behind, oh, I just made the numbers better. It's because how the shit makes you feel, honestly, like how an iPhone makes you feel as opposed to, Android. Apple basically made it to where if you have an iPhone, you're cool, and if you don't have an iPhone, you're not cool. That's how they basically made broke. Exactly. That's how they basically made the iPhone for people. So they chose to do it the artistic way and outside the status quo, and now everybody has a fucking iPhone.
Yeah.
As opposed to just doing it by the numbers, and I'm just gonna make this faster, I'm just gonna make this better, I'm just gonna blah 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 blah.
You have to know what's driving the engine, and then be creative and artistic, and learning how to drive that engine better in your direction.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're gonna, like I said, if I say I'm gonna set out to compete with Apple and build a new phone, I would have to be extremely artistic. I can't beat the dead horse and just make it faster and faster and faster or better and quote unquote smarter. It's got to be not just the product itself artistic, but the way Austin said, the way it's depicted. What's the engine? Why do people want iPhones? Nowadays, it's pretty simple, because if you don't have an iPhone, you look broke. Nobody wants to text anybody with green bubbles.
Exactly.
And yeah, pretty much Apple is just a culture. You want to go into the Apple store and buy the phone. You want to, post it on social media. You want to have you want to have Apple Pay. You want to do all that kind of bullshit. But in order to be more creative than that, we have to make and you talk about this a lot, the user experience.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make this is where we're talking about your network is your net worth. And Austin made the analogy that people have to be able to vouch for you, and that they have to be able to be like, this guy or gal or individual was a badass. They were awesome. They can work with anybody. We want to present them to everybody. So it's the same thing with the concept of marketing that new phone. You'd have to be far surpassing word of mouth and in the society and community that your product is better than Apple. Good luck.
Yeah, definitely wish you luck on that. But hey, well, I think that's all we have for today. We gave you a nice little chunk of how we felt about artistic versus the scientific approach to business and shit, and even to life, So, do you have any closing remarks before we end it today? Or?
Be structured, but be artistic.
You're an artist, man.
Everybody
or
is.
Woman, or however you identify, you're an artist. So, paint that picture.
The AM Club Podcast.